Hi, I'm Jeff Lowe, Chief Executive Officer of Asian Sky Group and Asian Sky Media, here today with Cindy, Director of Cabin Service for Sino Jet. Soon we'll be releasing our 2020 training report, and we're very happy to have Cindy on today to talk about some of the issues that's facing the industry and how Sino Jet is tackling those. So first question, if you will, Cindy, is, and I think it'll be quite an interesting answer from you, is what type of training do you offer? It may be a simple, straightforward question, but it probably has a little bit of a longer answer. But what type of training do you offer?
So thank you for having me, Jeffrey. We actually do service training, of course, for our beginners, as well as internal and external public training. We also offer a lot of different safety trainings. When we talk about service training, we divide them into internal and external. Internal is we take care of our own internal crew, existing crew, where we actually divide the service program into 4 different categories. So the first category would be more for the beginners, if you will, where we, for example, teach corporate the aviation orientation, as well as how do you groom yourself towards the standards. We cover corporate image.
And what's a beginner to you?
A beginner is someone totally new in the industry, because we do have clients that would want to have a freshly, crew from commercial side, or even PAs that want to become a flight attendant, working in the business aviation. So they are not really familiar with a lot of terms, types of aircrafts that we have, and things like that. So this is something that we need to retrain them. We need to train them on beverage training, for example, very simple, the wine and the cocktails, as well as the premium service, customer service, hygiene, working safely in the cabin, and etc. So that's basically the intro for all the existing crew that comes in, as well as basically touching on our Sino Jet standards, because they're quite high.
Yeah, sure.
Then secondly would be our recurrent, I call that, more a recurrent training for existing crew. They've been with us for approximately 1.5 to 2 years, They need, we ask them to come back, and we will more touch on the aircraft security training, for example, report writing, because all our crew, they need to know how to write good reports, especially when they have done a trip.
Just what's the time difference for those different training programs? I sort of get the sense the recurring may only be a few days, whereas the initial training, shall we say it, is a much longer period. So.
The initial training also depends, it's more tailored. So it also depends on the crew itself. Some of them are quite quick. They get it right away. Some of them I've taught some of the crew for more than two weeks. Normally this type of training takes a week, and then another week safety training. But if there is a crew or they need a little bit longer time to digest, then I'm more than willing to spend more time with them, because at the end of the day, the ultimate goal is to make sure that they understand what they need to do and what our standards are and how they need to perform in flight. What are their duties and responsibilities, and etc. It's really important. Yeah. Sure. So that's the recurrent training. We also talk about the different types of luxury foods. For example, caviar, abalone, foie gras, and so on. So, we also touch more on the silver service. So this type of training, we do that in-house, and it takes around a day, like a 1-day recurrent training. Right. Then the next level will be more for the middle level crew, meaning the more senior crew. They've been with us maybe for 4 or 5 years or even longer, and they are put on the leadership training. So we teach them. So I go through trainer training with them, stress management. How do you actually keep yourself cool?
Okay,
yeah. They need that.
They need that, yeah.
I also teach mentor and coaching skills as well.
How to deal with a principal.
Exactly. How to deal with the guests, the principals, all the different departments.
Sure, yeah.
We touch about that, as well as an own self-created program, which is CAP Power. We touch about where we teach more on communication, accountability, and passion. Because we believe if you have been in this industry for quite a certain of time, you need to have these elements for sure to ensure that you are that good leader type to basically also train the juniors, because they've been with us for quite a long time. And then the last stage will be the LEAD program, which is the lead program. We focus more on counseling, counseling the crew. We focus more on public speaking as well as on presentation, empowerment. How do you empower your team? Could be towards the pilot side or the other team, and motivation. How do you motivate your team? So, and I think with this program for our internal crew, that it's a continuous learning thing. So I do believe on personal development very much, and I always tell them whenever we have interviews, I always tell to every single interviewee that training can never be so much more important, because you need to continuously have that development. It's good for themselves, and it's good for the rest of the team as well.
All right, three quick questions from me. Now, it would seem to me what you're offering at the 4 levels is unique. It would seem to me that the normal operator doesn't break it down into the 4 modules. There's a training, and that's kind of it. So I would maybe I'm wrong, but it would seem certainly that you're offering some unique programs. And again, depending on the experience and sophistication of the candidates. So yes, unique, right?
It is very unique. I've actually written 3 books till now. These are the three different stages.
Okay.
So they are all given a particular book. Depends on which program they are enrolled into. And it also gives them a little bit more than just sitting in training and listen to, what is wine, what is this. They should know by now. So what else can you offer them? And I think you have to really groom the seniors as well, so that they are with you to also be coaching the juniors. Because if you don't do that, then it's going to go wrong, right? I mean.
Okay, my other 2 quick questions. It would seem maybe that, is it easier to train a fresh candidate versus, say, someone who's transiting from a commercial airline? To a certain degree, I think, the cabin standards that you have and a lot of the industry have are certainly, it's beyond first class. And so a lot of times, if it's someone who's been in the commercial side, they may have, I don't mean to be disparaging by this, they may have developed some bad habits, if you will. It's just, as we all know, it's a different environment entirely. And even though they have a lot of experience, it may also at times require you to untrain that, if you will, and move over to another place. So is it sort of easier to take a fresh, if you will, someone you can mold, or is it still easier to take someone who's got the experience, who's been in the aircraft and has a few more years under their if you will, under the legs? So.
Well, I would say, Jeffrey, both different types of persons are different. The approach of training and the training methodology would be also different. For someone that is totally new, I just need a little bit more time to let them understand the whole aviation terminology, the types of aircraft, and etc. And it's actually quite, I guess, a little bit more challenging to train a brand new person that's never involved in aviation. Whereas I need to take in a flight attendant who've been in the industry in commercial for so long to then train them or transit them into a corporate. They do have that little background, although it's not the same, but they do understand it a little bit faster, I would say, if you will. Okay. The only thing that I need to retrain them would be all the service standards, because it's like you said, it's a total different eye-opener. And that's why
everything doesn't go on one plate.
No, it's correct. That's correct. And in 2019, I because I've been in Sino Jet almost 5 years now, within the years, I found that during the interviews that we do, there were a lot of questions from us that they simply couldn't answer because, and there's no doubt because they've never really experienced corporate aviation. So, and then I thought, why don't we have a public course, a transition course, if you will, for those who want to kind of have a taste of what is business aviation like, but at the end of the day, they still can think of, they still can choose whether they really want to enter business aviation or they rather not to. It's their choice. A lot of them, they told me that they wanted to start to find answers at Google or find more information on the website, which is barely you can't find. There are no such courses, not really that many. And that's why I came up to that idea to kind of create a corporate jet crew program, to give them a taste of what it is like to really work in the business aviation. And are you ready to really go forward and do that?
And how's the response been to that?
Really good. I mean, in 2019, in June, when we started, I collaborated with another partner in the beginning, and the response was really great. We actually had successfully enrolled. We had monthly sessions every single month, sometimes with a bigger class, sometimes with a smaller class. It's just in 2020 that when the pandemic started, it kind of mellowed down a bit, I would say, just because we wanted to focus on our own crew first and make sure that they are taken care of because, the pandemic is a big issue.
Okay, my third question was, you talked about safety training. So when you talk about safety training, is that, I'm just going to say for lack of a better word, the hardcore, like in the pool, smoke in the fuselage type of safety training, or is it, this is a seat belt and,
No.
Which one is it?
Our safety trainings are quite unique as well. As you must know, Jeffrey, that the SEP, the Safety Emergency Procedure Training, it is quite difficult to fulfill, especially if you need to go onto that particular aircraft to do that training. Not all clients, they allow you to just jump in the aircraft and do that training. So what I have thought of with my emergency procedure instructor, to do the one-day training theory in the class with that particular team of crew that they always fly together with, and then give a whole package, like a training package to the lead captain to let him then do the practical training in flight because he is going to need to do it anyway.
Yeah, he's the team leader. So
exactly, and so actually, basically, involve them into the training part to give them more also responsibility and accountability, and say, look, this is your set of crew. Touch wood. If there's something going on, you are the one to basically keep this team together. So we give them, we help them, and we give them a package on how to train them in flight in the practical part, and so that we know that every single crew understands perfectly what to do in certain safety situations. Of course, with that we have the first aid training. We also do the fire, smoke, and sea survival. We have security training, CRM, name it. We do that.
Okay. Yeah, but I think Cathay has a facility here in Hong Kong where you literally get in the pool and and so are you up to that kind of level, or is it just more, as you say, practical training in the aircraft itself?
Oh, no. We also have the fire, smoke, and sea survival drills, which is done in a facility here in Hong Kong, where they are basically blindfolded. They need to jump in the water and
all right.
get their infrared jacket, get their life jackets on. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, and actually have to remove an emergency exit, instead of just going, there it is. I actually have to take it out. And, okay, good, great, yeah. So sort of the next question we have is, as we all know, it's challenging times. So what sort of challenges particularly is if you will, is the training industry, if I can call it that, what is it facing at the moment? And maybe answer the question more on kind of a broad sense, the big issues, and then maybe you've got some individual issues that you're facing that are particular to Sino Jet. I'm not sure, but what are the challenges at the moment?
Last year we found that, of course, a lot of normally scheduled trainings couldn't be done due to the pandemic. The government has shut down a lot of, facilities, as well as we couldn't do any face-to-face trainings, kind of like switch it to online training. So from last year onwards, there are some trainings that couldn't be done face-to-face or the practical part, we then switched on to blended learning, or we just do it online. So we continue with our training. It's just a different method,
Right. Okay. But did you then have to design new course material and so on? I mean, my sister's a teacher, and she's normally in the classroom. And for her, the biggest challenge has been coming up with new materials to use online, which is different than what she's had to use in the classroom. And then just not having that personal face-to-face, doing everything online as well. All different challenges.
It is. And then, first of all, you also need to think of what kind of tools you're going to use. Are you going to use a normal Zoom, or are you going to use a different tool? And how long do you want to have the webinar, if you will, or how long do you want to have that particular training? Because an adult can only sit still for maybe the first 10 to 15 minutes. And then you need to kind of like draw their attention. You do not want them to fall asleep. So there are a few factors that you need to take into consideration. But for us, I try to kind of limit the online training and just touch on the most important parts and do it afterwards, do another practical later on when the pandemic is gone, I hope. And if not, actually, as a matter of fact, I'm also exploring on some more blended learning, which is more where we can put in activities in, and to make it more interesting. If this trend is going on and the pandemic is not going away for a long time, I'm sure going to put all these trainings onto the online session, which is you cannot just sit here and do nothing, basically, isn't it? Yeah.
Next question is, I guess, looking forward. And again, it's a tough question to answer because we really don't know when we'll finally be through the pandemic and sort of return back to what we may say was the old normal. But obviously, a big issue has always been when it came to training is how many pilots, how many mechanics, but also how many cabin staff are we going to need going forward? Is it a challenge at the moment for you to recruit new members, or do you think that the industry will always have enough available and that it won't prove to be a huge challenge? They talk about there not being enough pilots and maybe not enough mechanics, but what's the situation like when it comes to cabin service?
Well, in the next following 10 years, I foresee that we continue need to have a lot of different flight attendants, no matter how, and apparently with the trend now, we do have a lot of clients that are looking for, more younger, more. They don't really care whether this particular flight attendant has actually gone through commercial or have any private jet experience. I do have a lot of requests from PAs.
Can I ask why is that?
Well, maybe it's just because the client itself are more younger millionaires. They are very young as well, 29, some of them as young as 25, and they've become, they own their own private jet. So it's quite normal that they don't want to kind of be working with a much more mature crew, I would say. They rather go more for their same age, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, I understand that,
Yeah, so I guess in this sense that more and more clients or even personal assistants have come to me and asked, can you actually help and train me? Because I really want to also be a corporate flight attendant. So then my training programs will shift a bit according to this type of audience, of course. I will foresee in the coming 10 years that there is an upcoming trend of more, different that we need more flight attendants, and the
But
same that goes.
but do you think there's a challenge to get them though, or do you see like when you need people, you can find them very readily?
Well, I would say,
maybe the next question is sort of on that a little bit, and then how do you attract them to the industry? I mean, if you're looking for people, how do you attract them? Do they come in with unrealistic or very idealistic kind of image of what what the job entails?
That's a very interesting question as well, Jeffrey. Nowadays, last 2 years, we've been actually collaborating and working with a lot of different universities just to attract more younger talents as well. Because this industry is so unique. Corporate business aviation is quite secretive until now. And we just wanted to get out there and say, look, actually, it's not only...
Yes, you can have a career in business aviation.
Exactly. A lot of times they do not think that there is a career here, but there certainly is. So we've been collaborating with universities internationally. Singapore, we've been, invited to speak in Baptist University as well as HQ Space, Hong Kong universities, and where I actually tell them a little bit more about our industry, and there is a career, and you could explore, and which then turns out that they are very interested. If they got to know about that program, they are very interested. They really want to know, or they just want to learn. I had actually a very good story. I think it was a couple of months ago when I did the public course. I had actually a student who wanted to be a pilot, a cadet pilot. And he said, it was a he said, well, I just want to come in and sit in. I do not want to fly, but I just want to know a little bit more about the business aviation, and hence I'm taking this course. So I guess it's quite interesting. I have had students from all different walks of life, and trying to inspire them.
Maybe that goes back to a comment you made earlier, that there's not a lot of material out there at the moment where people can, if you will, reach out or search or Google that gives them, I guess, more insight into what our industry is all about and what is entailed. Working in the cabin, for instance, roles and responsibilities. I think, certainly wrongly, there's maybe a little bit of a inappropriate image of what is entailed in working in the cabin, and it's there's a lot more to it than that. And as you say, I mean, you have in your responsibility all those people in the cabin, and so it's big responsibility as well. So.
It is, and they at the end of the class, really everyone, but we do ask for feedback. They all said that, wow, it's an eye opener. Never knew that, as a corporate flight attendant or in the business aviation, there are so many different things which is totally never heard of, and I think them. I would think that I've done a good job. I actually participated in their, success for later when they move on. So, yeah.
That's one of the pleasures of the job, too, for me. Exactly. So.
Exactly.
Cindy, I greatly appreciate the time you spent with us. It's been very interesting to see what Sino Jet does, and if you will, certainly seems you guys are kind of at the cutting edge, if you will. Just interesting programs, each interesting, if you will, reaching out to try to draw new people into the industry as well. And so I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you for having me. Thank you.